Several types of robots will be trialled at Punggol Digital District later this year, taking on roles such as deliveries and security patrols. Now, this is part of a new partnership aimed at establishing Singapore's first live testbed for physical AI in the public space. Alexandra Anand with more.
Whether it's delivering mail, food, or even cleaning up a spill, robots like these could soon become a common sight. But moving out of the lab and into the real world means navigating obstacles, people, and even other robots. That's why they will soon be put to the ultimate test at Punggol Digital District. 8 firms, including ride-hailing company Grab and security services provider Certis, are set to run large-scale trials here. The aim is to develop common rules for mass adoption.
We don't look at it as just measuring, how many robots are being deployed, or what applications are being developed. But we are looking at how we can augment our frontline workers in terms of improving their reaction times to situations, allowing them to patrol a wider area, allowing them to be able to get more insights into the job so that they can actually do it more effectively.
The data collected will be used to redesign workflows so workers can take on higher value roles such as supervision and operations management. Digital Development and Information Minister Josephine Teo says such test beds are key in helping spread acceptance and ultimately adoption.
We will create an integrated data platform, design real-world test scenarios, and rules that enable robots to safely operate across the district. Robots can help our workers enhance service delivery to areas that are currently underserved.
She was speaking at the Asia Tech Summit, where she also outlined refreshed priorities under the National AI Strategy. These, she says, build on recent efforts to transform key sectors and make Singapore a leading hub for innovation.
In all these efforts, Singapore entities will not be passive observers waiting for solutions to be served on a platter. We will engage actively, address pain points together with our partners, strengthen our ecosystem to create new value for businesses and industries.
All part of a broader push to strengthen Singapore's AI ecosystem, spanning industry, talent, and governance.
When it comes to testing robots in public spaces, an expert says several key systems must work together behind the scenes. Existing 5G networks could be sufficient, as they may be used mainly to monitor robot status and data. That is because most decisions are made locally within the robots. Different units may also require different platforms and apps, depending on their function. Now, for example, delivery robots may need real-time updates. With multiple operators involved in the trial, coordination and information sharing will be important. Now, security will have to be top of mind for these robots. They will need to follow industry standards, such as emergency stop buttons and automatic stops near people. Possible vulnerabilities could include cyber attacks through internet networks. Protecting against these will require strong cybersecurity across national networks, alongside firewalls and AI-assisted software patching where possible. Now, charging stations are essential, as these robots will be battery-operated. To manage power use, human and robot coordination is key, with robots given time to charge during breaks. The role of humans will be essential, with new roles and jobs needed for someone on the back end taking over if there's an error or an emergency.
We need to do a quick trial, and then once this is done, we should quickly go into other areas, say other HDB places or industrial park, so that we can do further refinement. A lot of time we're talking about manpower shortage, right? So some of this where I really need robots to help, and then we need to roll out as soon as possible.
And for more on the new initiatives at Punggol Digital District, we are joined by Dr. Ong Cheng Hui, the Assistant Chief Executive of the BizTech Group at IMDA, as well as Rahul Kumar, Chief Executive of International and Robotics and Chief Strategy Officer at Certis Group. Welcome. Good evening. Now, firstly, to Chen Hui, what makes testing physical AI and robotics in Punggol different from testing in other districts? Why Punggol and why now?
Okay, first of all, thanks a lot for having me here. Well, what we are trying to work towards is really about trusted coexistence between human and robots. And the public space is one where they may be sharing the space quite closely. Now, we have funded a lot of previous trials around robotics, and those have been successful. But one lesson that we see recurring has been that if the robots are working in semi-structured and private spaces, like manufacturing floors, for example, they tend to perform really well. But once we're talking about public spaces, where the regulations as well as infrastructure readiness can kind of fragment the operating space of the robots, then that's where it can cost quite a bit for individual robot fleets to figure out how they can interoperate across their entire operating zone. But it's not just about the cost to business, because at the end of the day, if there's such fragmentation, our concern is also that when it comes to safety, cybersecurity, or privacy, there can be very differing implementation and very different standards that are actually being implemented. So what we want to do here, given that the state of robotics has really improved over the past few years, is to look at creating a mixed use zone consisting of the universities, the commercial shops and all that in PDD, to look at how then do we actually encourage different kind of deployment scenarios. And in this living testbed, that is also a regulatory sandbox, we can then iterate through what should be the right governance model, what should be the right standards, and how do we think about interoperability between both for the buildings as well as for the robot fleets. Yeah.
Now, Rahul, a question for you. This is quite an interesting pilot for Certis, because you're not just placing robots, you're making robots, AI systems, and the workforce coming together. So in a real-world situation, can you give us an example of how this works?
No, absolutely. So Certis as background, we provide integrated operations across security, cleaning, guest services, aviation contexts, commercial contexts. We have over 25,000 people across the region providing these services. What we're looking to do at PDD is to bring all of this together with that operational knowledge to bring the robotic solutions out of the lab and into real deployments in this test bed. Now, I'll share one example around security robotics to your question. A security robot may be doing a routine patrol. They may see an uncertain, unexpected situation, an unattended bag, for example, don't have an owner nearby. Now, in those situations, that report, that video footage would be sent back to a command center. And that command center would then be looking at that footage. We'd have a human there, potentially assisted through AI, to say, what type of response is required? Does it require a security response? Does it require a guest services response, cleaning response? And potentially we would have a human, patrol crew actually go out and respond to that situation. So in doing this, we're able to have the frontliners work together with the robotic solutions. And we think we can achieve better outcomes in doing that. Now at PDD, there will be a whole range of situations, different types of environments, different type of terrain, real world operations. And we're expecting to see a lot of new situations, a lot of new test cases, hoping to learn from that to refine the deployments that are being placed in this testbed.
And how would you measure the success of this project and its impact of perhaps frontline day-to-day workers if it succeeds?
No, absolutely. So we think about the operational outcomes in terms of the security outcomes that are delivered to our customers. So ultimately, that relates to timely responses, accurate detection, more efficient and more productive frontline workforces. So ultimately, we see the outcomes around that. It's the same outcomes that we would typically provide around security contracts, around cleaning contracts. And we're looking to improve the bar to make those better. Now, ultimately, the way we see all of this working together is that much of the routine, much of the repeatable tasks, a routine patrol may be done through robotic solutions, monitored from a command center. Then ultimately, we have the frontliner response, doing a lot of the discretionary tasks, a lot of the judgment, where empathy is required, human response is required. And in bringing those together, we can improve the productivity of our people and have our frontliners do more value-adding work in the delivery of the services.
Sounds really exciting. Now, Chen Hui, can I ask, how does this project broaden Singapore's ambition of being an AI and robotics hub? And are there plans perhaps to move this test bed to other parts of Singapore?
Yes. So I think the short answer is we do hope that the learnings that we have here can definitely help us propagate robotics across Singapore. So now, embodied AI, which is the intelligence layer behind robots, that is a growing field. And the reason why it's growing is also because of what Rahul mentioned just now, which is that for the robots to be able to deal with many different complex and dynamic situations, they do need better intelligence. So this is an area that's getting increasing attention, simply because it can help robots really work effectively on the task at hand. And we see this as an important way in which we can actually augment the needs of our economy, especially with an aging workforce, and especially if there are certain parts of the economy where some positions can be hard to fill, right? Repetitive tasks, for example, as well as those that require heavy lifting. So we do think that if we can actually have an effective alternative that can augment our workforce and that can actually also prepare our workforce for a future where embodied AI as well as physical AI becomes a norm, that would be a good outcome for Singapore.
Certainly very terribly exciting. Thank you so much for sharing about the project at PDD. And we'll be speaking to Dr. Ong Chen Hui from the IMDA, as well as Rahul Kumar of Certis Group. Thank you.